something so exceptional. There are always one person, two persons who make it. Many institutions, they need hundreds of bureaucrats to do something. And here it's really initiative for very few, and Peter makes it year after year. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Maybe.
When I come to School of Architecture, the question is whether I know something that I can convey to you. Mostly, from my experience as a student, I know that architects come with some glossy photographs, show one after the other, but they don't explain how they came to building these photographs, these buildings. I would say that it's more important to speak about how the buildings came as they are, and not only showing the photographs, because these photographs, if they are the buildings of any good, they are printed in these glossy journals. So repeating the same is, I don't think that brings any new information. We all live by example, but we also live through our own experience. Our own experience in architecture is the process of design. Each one of us, whether he is a student or an architect, has to go through this process of design. Now, I would like to start with first two images that you can show. Can you? That's a project which I started many years ago, but I'm still showing it. It's near Tel Aviv in Israel, a small center, commercial and housing. Next. Next, 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 next. I'm showing some drawings because that's the process of design. The question is that we start the process of design, but we never know where it will lead us, where it will be finished, what is the destination. If we don't know what is the destination, this destination doesn't appear on any maps. If it doesn't appear on any maps, there is no public transport to this destination. So we as architects, or students of architecture, have to build our own transport, our own vehicle to arrive to this unknown destination. And those drawings, in my case, they are the means of transport to what I call unknown destination. Next, 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 next. And then we built the model. It was for this, I said, for the city near Tel Aviv, Ramat HaSharon, and after 4 years of work, because there are many, many more drawings, I show only several, the city said, thank you very much, and it was never built. But the question is whether the investment of time, energy, whatever you would like to call it, for this nearly 4 years was waste of time, or it wasn't waste of time. I would like to show you next project. Next. It's C is a spiral building, A is a building we built in the 60s, C a spiral building in the 80s. And you will see that probably you will notice that the laboratory that of those drawings that you have seen before have some influence on this building. Next. It's geometry. It's very mathematical, but also very unruled, very, I would say, painterly or sculpturally. Next. 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 So even here, though, with my experience in the previous project, I still have to build another means of transport to arrive at the destination. So you cannot build one vehicle and it will bring you to all the destinations. Well, it's a metaphor. Don't start to build cars. Next. 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 I think I will finish the lecture quite soon. Next. And you see the building. It's very small building. It's only 8 apartments, each apartment on 1 floor. Every floor has only 1 apartment. Next. It's opposite another building that we built in the 60s. That's in the 80s. Next. Next. And I think that would be difficult for me to imagine and to make this building if I wouldn't be working before on this commercial center, which was never built. Next. And that's a Jewish school in Berlin, which is in the 90s. And again, I would say that still this effort of what I was doing in the 80s is evident here. The Jewish school, the first one built after the Holocaust. Next. And you have again the drawings. Next. 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 But the geometry is very precise. Next. That's the entrance. Another, I would say, factor in this way that I am somehow designing is the notion, the intention to stretch as much as possible the material that I get. I mean, you can put a building into a small cube, or you can stretch it or make it higher using the same material. As you have seen in the spiral building, it could have been a building of 3 floors. Instead of it, it became a building of 8 floors. The school could be also a small, dense building, but what we have done is rather a small city. Next. With courtyards. Next. And courtyards leading to the outside, so there is a kind of protection like in the city. I would say that architecture for me, and maybe not only for me of course, it's a protection. It's surrounding the people by material, not letting people go around the building, but surrounding the material around the building and protecting people. From what? That's another question. And then before the construction was finished, we made a model of the walls of the school. And we found out that the building is not what we have thought at the beginning, because at the beginning, the building was laid out on a geometry of sunflower. And during the construction, many friends that came to see commented that it looks not like a sunflower, of course, but as a small city. But eventually, one can say that the building looks like pages of an open book. But if I would be, I always quote myself in this regard, if I would be more clever, I would start to design a school on the pages of an open book, because in Hebrew, in the language of Israel, the school is Bet Sefer, which means house of the book. But if I would start to design the school on the basis of a book, for sure I will finish with sunflowers. Next. Yeah, because what you start and what you finish should be a big distance. That's no progress if you start at A and you finish at B. Better at X. Next. Image, yeah. Next. That's another building in this book. Also result of competition. But here you can see that these pages of a book get another dimension. Instead of being walls, they are like volumes of two walls which introduce the light into the interior. So there was another progress. So one can say from one building to another, we learn something of what we have done before. Next. You can see those pages here that introduce the light into the interior and create a kind of pergola when the building is facing the open park. So there is a kind of generosity on that the building is, even when it's cold, closed, people can go under the building or under the pergola in the park completely freely. Next. Next. The black one is part of the synagogue, small synagogue in this Jewish cultural center in this book. Next. You see the light coming from those pages of the book. Next. Next. That's a project which I have started in the 90s, like mountains, buildings like mountains. Today it's quite natural, many young people do it. I never have built it, but we have done more research in this respect. Next. 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 It was also in Biennale in Venice. Next. But we never succeeded to build this building. On the other hand, in Tel Aviv, there was a competition for a museum of Palmach. It was a military organization that fought for the independence of Israel against the British mandate. And you can see how many trees growing on the slot. Next. To save the trees, because we have to dig enormous basement, we have to protect also the soil of the trees. That's the way we protect them. Next. And then we discover a kind of stone when digging for the basement, and we started to use it. Very fragile one. Next. And you see how we use the stone on the elevation. Many layers of different materials, the green vegetation, then stone, concrete, again another stone, plaster, concrete, and finally the trees that we have saved. They already are part of the architecture. Next. And that's how it looks from the outside. A friend of mine, Misha Ullman, a very fantastic sculptor, said it looks like two mountains and trees growing in between. So, because it's a kind of memorial, it doesn't look like a building, really. It looks like many people who never have been in this part of Tel Aviv believe that this building was for tens of years there and they have never seen it, because I think what is really good that you don't see the date on the building. When the building is dated and you see, that's from the 60s, that's from the 50s and so on. There shouldn't be any date, on architecture. Next. That's the way we use this stone. It's so fragile that part of the stone and the sand, because it's a sandstone, with the water, with the rain going, some sand is going down. But fortunately in Israel it's not raining. Next. And you see some experiments how to use this stone. First we sought to use it in the plaster, but the stone was falling. But we left the experiments as they are, though our client was not very happy. Next. Next. And not only that we had very limited budget, but also the contractor was not one of the best contractors in Tel Aviv, but eventually we got concrete, which is very expressive, much better than, of course in Germany it won't pass the Germans which dislike it. But for me it was a good opportunity to let the people who work on the scaffolding to do their own work and not to design too much. But the idea was that what is going today in the world with the so good intentions that everybody has by bombing all around the world, that's what is happening next. And now in the ABC, the art fair in Berlin, I make this sculpture, which is a kind of cave with paintings of caves in mountains in France. And the idea, we call this "if we are lucky." So it means if we are lucky, we will finish in caves. If we are not so lucky, we will finish without caves. Next. 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 That's a project which has some similarity with the Palmach Museum in Tel Aviv, in Georgia. And next, it's aquarium and aviary for birds. Next. We won the competition, but somebody else, of course, is building something else. Next. That's normal in Georgia. No, maybe not only in Georgia. Sorry. And that's a project. And that's a project we make in Poland. It's a housing project near the existing hotel. Next. It's terraces. Next. And one of the last projects that I would like to show is a proposal for another piazza in front of the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. There is one square which is called Parisienplatz, but in front, on the other side, this round, it's simply a connection of various roads, and pedestrians have no place to be there. Next. So we suggested to make the vehicular traffic together with pedestrians or around it. There was another alternative, but to make two squares on both sides of the Brandenburg Gate. Next. And that's the square. Next. And this is a project which we are now finishing in Amsterdam, in Schiphol, in the airport of Schiphol, very close to the terminal. Next. It's, I already said that I think many of my projects have this inclination to be more than a building, but more than, I would say, a small city. Here, it's a kind of basis for the Royal Military Police, Royal Dutch Police that serves the Queen, but only on the airports, not in the cities. And they needed a new campus. The normal way to do it would be to make a big parking lot, because they need a lot of cars, and on both sides barracks. That's what my clients expected, because I won the competition, unfortunately, by speaking. That was only an interview, so then I have to design the project. When my client, the military, look over my shoulders, and every 2 weeks I was surprised with different results. So that was not so easy. But I used the buildings to surround the space, to create a kind of protected environment, many courtyards. And some people already said that it looks like medieval walled city, with one difference, that in this project the wall is the city. You see the blue and the violet and the green, together with the big dike, which is natural in Holland. They create the frame of the city, but they are also the houses. Next. I think it's a model. Next. And here I explain the project to my boss. He is Lieutenant General, but not this time with the beautiful blue uniform. Next. And I try to explain how good is the project. Next. And the scratching of his head costed me 1 year of delay, because he was right, the project was too expensive, over the budget, because at that time in Holland was so much work for the construction, building constructions, that nobody wanted to take another complicated building. Next. But then I was more fortunate explaining the project to the Queen, Queen Maxima. Next. And the result was more fortunate. Next. Because the project is now under construction. Next. Next. And this is a book with all the sketches and more than I have shown. Thank you very much.